Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Today's video is going to be a video that has some similar elements to other videos, but it's a timeline, and I have it in Excel, of the crucial time frame of the homicides of Ethan Chapin, Xander Knodel, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Now, Bryan Kohberger has been charged with killing all four of those victims, and I 100% believe that Bryan Kohberger is the killer. You're more than welcome to believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just using the facts of the case. Now, we often hear people say stuff, there's no facts pointing to Kohberger, and man, I've never heard such nonsense. It's one of the craziest comments I've ever seen, but we've all read those comments that people make, and I'm sure some of the people watching have actually made those comments themselves. But today's video is regarding that the crucial timeline. So let's take a look. This dark red here is when I believe the homicides took place. We know that at 4:07 and 47 seconds, the headlights hit 1127 King Road, which is right here. It's this house right there. So when the Elantra is coming around like this, as it's turning, the headlights shift and hit the top of this building right here. That's 1127. Let me go back to a different date where the house is still there. There you go, right there. This is 1122 King Road is right there, and the house that always has the surveillance footage in the area is right there. That's 1112 King Road, and that camera picks up the headlights as it turns and hits this building right here at 4:07 and 47 seconds. So likely the vehicle parked right around 4:08. So I think the homicides took place between 4:08 and 4:18, but we see right here at 4:08 the car parks, the white Elantra. Then at 4:12, Xander Knodel is using TikTok. And then at 4:17, we hear voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. And then I believe Kohberger leaves the residence right around 4:18 because the sound of the dog barking, the loud thud, were actually late in the 4:17 minutes. So it was like 4:17 and 50 seconds or so. So I think he's walking by Dylan Mortensen's room right around 4:18. And so what that means is about 2 minutes and 47 seconds later is when he's heading away at a high rate of speed. But let's see what was going on in the house at that time. And then I'm gonna skip all the text messages and so forth after the car speeds away. So he leaves at 4:18, and then Bethany at 4:19 calls Dylan. And then Dylan must have answered the phone because she felt comfortable, because she knows that the killer had left through the kitchen at around 4:18, and now they feel comfortable talking on their phone. And then at 4:20, Dylan calls Xana. Now she's checking in on Xana because remember, she heard just moments before the whimpering sound, etc., but she didn't get a response. And then at 4:20 and 28 seconds, Dylan Mortensen calls Bethany Funk for 41 seconds. So they actually talk. She's trying to get a hold of other roommates, and that's the only one that's responding. Dylan Mortensen calls Bethany Funk, like I said, at 4:20 and 28 seconds. And then just 19 seconds after that, Kohberger's vehicle, the white Elantra, is seen speeding away at a high rate of speed at 4:20 and 47 seconds. So it's interesting to see that there was communication inside the house while he's still outside prepping himself for entry into that car by probably doing some blood spatter mitigation. So right here, all of this communication happened while Kohberger was still outside, and I don't even think he'd even driven away at 4:20 and 28 seconds. I think he pulled away at like 4:20 and 38 seconds or so, and that is right here. So when he's parked back here, he drives this direction, and then the camera picks him up right there at 4:20 and 47 seconds, really speeding away. I mean, he's just hauling around here. And then, as we've seen on other videos that I've made, this camera here on 112 King Road, films the white Elantra between here 1119 right there and then 1127. So right when it's driving like this, and right through that gap right there, you can see the headlights and the actual vehicle of the Elantra driving south on Willanta Drive right there. And that is at 4:21 and 5 seconds. So when you saw it speeding away at a high rate of speed of 4:20 and 47 seconds, it only took the vehicle 18 seconds to get all around that corner and then be heading south. So it was really heading away at a high rate of speed. So now we're going to move to 4:48 right here. And that's when the CAS data shows that Koberger's phone turned on, and I guess that they said west of Blaine. So it says Highway 95 near Blaine, and then CAS data, Koberger's phone turns on. I guess he used VPN to connect to the internet. However, his phone would still have to be what connected to the tower. All right, so let's take a look at that. I turned on all of the different pins and so forth that I have. So after the vehicle leaves, it drives this direction, down this way, and it goes on to Conestoga Drive, and then out on Palouse River Drive right here. Now, in the probable cause document, it mentions going this direction. However, in some of the hearings, it sounds like Ann Taylor's saying that the white Elantra isn't spotted on these various surveillance cameras, like at Wasankari Construction. I think there was another one that they mentioned, and apparently it doesn't show up on there. And I guess this one here, Mundy's Machine and Welding, apparently there's cameras there, and the white Elantra didn't pass there. And then I've always thought, okay, there's 16 minutes of missing time. Okay, because when the vehicle drives here at 4:20 and 47 seconds when it leaves, it should have reached Blaine by around 4:32. It's not that far away. It's only like 5 or 6 miles. But it didn't. It got there at 4:48. So what would account for that? Well, one of the possibilities is that it took a different route. So let's take a look at this. Let's say it drove this direction, and then we've always assumed it went on Highway 95. But what if it didn't do that, and it drove right here on Palouse River Drive, and then it becomes Sandy Road, and then it goes out this direction? This would sort of match how he likes to drive, way out of the way in rural areas, and comes down here and takes this really long route where there's absolutely going to be no cameras really at all. I mean, there might be some on some of these houses, but let's just say he drove all the way down here. And then I looked it up, and I'm changing this a little bit. So let's say he comes down here, and instead of going south like I have it, he actually goes this direction. And you can see it right here in a Google Maps version. So look, the car comes around like this, and instead of how I had it driving down like this, he goes straight through Blaine. So it comes down like this, and Blaine is right over in this area. Let me show you on Google Earth again. So you come through here, and Blaine, Idaho is right here. So he actually drives through Blaine, Idaho. So if we look at that map again, yes, so this is Blaine, Idaho, and looking at this map, this is Blaine right here. So let's say it drove through there, and then it comes out right in that area. Well, look how long that took, 29 minutes. So you add that to 4:20, and you had, it's 47 seconds, you had 29 minutes, you're almost at 4:50, but he was driving at a high rate of speed to get out of that general area at the beginning. So if you cut off about 2 minutes, it would put him out on the highway 95 right there at 4:48. That's exactly when his phone would turn on. That's when I think he would have turned his phone on. After he drove all the way down here, his phone magically appears right there. Okay, he was trying to avoid any surveillance cameras, and then he turns it on right here, and he turned it on there to get mapping information to get across again using the rural route. So he would have come out up here at 4:48 and then drove down like this, and then down in this area he cuts across. This is how they have it on the probable cause. Cuts across and drives up. up north. Now let's take a look at the timeline information. See right here it says 4:48. It pings near Blaine, and then at 4:50 the CAS data keeps following Koberger's movement south. So after his phone pinged near Blaine, they continue following the vehicle down south. All right. Then after that, at 5:20, CAS data follows Koberger's movements according to Dateline to Johnson, Washington. So that wasn't something that was in the documents, but apparently at 5:20, the CAS data shows that Koberger's movements are near Johnson, Washington. So let's take a look at that on the map. So after it comes south down here, it heads across on this kind of really pretty random route. That's what law enforcement believes. And it heads up this way. Now at 5:20, a cell tower that utilizes Johnson, Washington, apparently the phone pinged there. So it could be anywhere along this, maybe up in this area here, and then drives around, and then at 5:26 the vehicle is spotted on cameras in this area right here at 1300 Johnson Avenue. It's a street name, probably named after that town over there. So we take a look at that, and it's 5:20. The CAS data shows Koberger movements according to Dateline by Johnson, Washington, and then you can see the vehicle at 1330 Johnson Avenue. And so if you look at it, his phone and the vehicle are in the same general area at that time. Suspect vehicle 1 and Koberger's phone. And then at 5:26, the CAS data shows he's getting near Pullman. And then we see at 5:26:22, he's on various streets heading back home. And then we see right here at 5:30, the CAS data shows there's movement consistent with heading home. And then at 5:30:18, he's on Northeast Stadium Way and Cougar Way, which is getting up very close to where he lives. Vehicle north on Stadium Way, turning east onto Northeast Orchard Drive. So again, these two marry up. His phone and a vehicle, suspect vehicle 1, matching the description of Brian Koberger's vehicle, is seen driving in Pullman, Washington. And then this is where at 6:17 a.m. he makes a phone call to his father, and then at 6:53 the call ended. And then we know that at 9 in the morning, the CAS data shows that his phone is leaving, near his residence, but leaving the area. And then at 9:12, his phone utilizes the same resources as 1122 King Road. And then at 9:12:59, about a minute later, his vehicle is spotted at the A&W, which is just down the street. It's only like 0.6 miles, maybe 0.5 miles away from the residence. And it says a vehicle matching the description of vehicle 1 is seen traveling southbound on Highway 95. And then right here, it's 9:21. He's still there in the Moscow area, and it utilizes the same resources as 1122 King Road. So he obviously sort of hung out in the general area for about 9 minutes because it was spotted at 9:12:59. So maybe you could just say 8 minutes. And then at 9:32, it's getting close to his residence in Pullman, Washington. So let's take a look at that. At 9:12, the vehicle is, the phone's utilizing the same resources. Now, I'm not really certain that the vehicle was within 100 yards when it says that. We have information out there that 23 times the vehicle was within 100 meters of the residence based on cell tower information, but then I've heard it worded differently where it said that the vehicle was utilizing the same resources as the 1122 King Road residence, and there isn't a ton of cell phone towers in the area. So I wonder if when Koberger came in, he took a route like this. He drove on, I think it's Perimeter Avenue or Drive here, comes down, and then he comes down this area right there, and at that moment, his phone is pinged in the area at 9:12. And then what if he then headed this direction down Taylor Avenue and then takes a right, and that's when the vehicle was spotted at 9:12:59, And then we don't really know what he did after that. Did he then come down here and drive up, back up in this area? Because the only camera that we're aware of is this Ridge Road camera. Apparently there are no cameras right here. So you drive up like this, up and around, and then come around like this. Maybe he came up here, and then he turned back around and went back down the same way. But I don't know if that works out timing-wise to get back to Pullman at, what was it, 9:31? Well, 9:32 right there. So he gets back to Pullman at 9:32. But when you see 9:21, it's utilizing the same resources. Couldn't that also mean that even if he was out here somewhere, his phone is still utilizing the same resources? Because maybe there's just like one tower out in this area. There's a tower right there, right? So what if that tower could also connect to your vehicle and it's up here, and that's where he was at 9:21, even though his vehicle still utilizes the same tower. Now law enforcement would have the direction his car was based on the tower. They give you like a specific arc that the vehicle was in. So you have a 360-degree chart like this. And let's pretend that the cell tower is right in the middle of this, and you're driving over here. The tower gives you data to tell you the direction that the ping came in on. And so that might give him an indication of where his vehicle was at 9:12, because we know 1 minute later it was a vehicle matching the description of suspect vehicle 1 was driving south next to the A&W right here. And so it kind of does make sense that maybe he came in like this, came down, and then drove that direction, and then that was at 9:12:59, and he's still utilizing the same resources. And then maybe he came up here like this, and then I guess it's possible he drove back the same way. But again, we have the dilemma with the 1320 Linda Lane camera that seems to be a camera that is always recording. It's not motion activated. So I'm interested to see what happens with that, because we know that there's at least one instance where the vehicle drove by and it was not recorded. And that's right around the time of the DoorDash. So as you remember, after the DoorDash driver was there, the vehicle drove by right here at 4 o'clock and 14 seconds, and it did not go back into here. Then it drove this direction, and it came around just like this, and then turned. And by the way, this camera here can also show that the vehicle came in like this. So it came around, and at 4:01:30 seconds, this camera picks it up driving like this, and then it takes a right, and then at 4:01:43 seconds, right there, the vehicle is spotted right here, and that's the great image of the vehicle missing its front license plate. But to get there, it would have had to pass 1320 Linda Lane. I know I've discussed this before, but I really want an answer for this. And it turns out if you go online and you look up the 1320 Linda Lane footage in full, it's like a 4 or 5 hour video. The only portion missing is from 3:30 until 4:05, which is just unbelievably inconvenient if law enforcement is using that footage and it really is missing. And it does appear that it might be missing because they didn't use it in their, when they described all the different camera shots, etc. It does not mention it driving by right then. It should have been about 4:01 when the vehicle drove by right there, and it doesn't. So, I don't know if law enforcement actually has that footage, or is it just randomly missing from 3:30 to 4:05, exactly when it would matter. Because if you remember, there's also a few other times when the vehicle drives around, does not enter the complex, and we do not have any information of it driving by Linda Lane, so it appears it stays in this general area, and then it drives back this direction. And even one of the times it turned around over here and then went in to the complex, which is pretty interesting. But again, this this camera here is something I would love to know what the reality is on that. Is there anybody out there that actually knows the truth of why the online version is missing 330 to 405 and why it seems to be corroborated by the fact that law enforcement doesn't seem to have the footage of it passing there right around 401. All right, so leave a comment in the comments section. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's possible he took that longer route around and that's what made up the difference? So maybe it comes around like this, drives across, and comes out right here at 448. And that's when he turned his phone on, and it obviously then pings on this cell tower that is right there. See that? That is an absolute cell tower. It's even got 120, 120, 120. So when the vehicle is driving, they can tell you which side of the tower it came on. And, you know, like for example, I don't know if you can see that, but let's just take a look at it like this really quick. See how there's three sides? 1, 2, 3. If the vehicle is driving down in this area, so like right here, that segment of the tower will pick it up. And then if it was anywhere north of that, so I guess you could say if he turned it on up in this direction, it may have picked up on that northern segment of the tower. All right, so let me know if you think that seems like something likely. He may have even had some pre-dug area out here where he just got out of his car, quickly threw it in, covered it up, boom, put a rock on top, and he got the hell out of there. And now he's over in this area. But that doesn't line up, however, with later on in the evening when at 5:32 to 5:36, his vehicle turned on for 4 minutes near Johnson, Washington. Is that where he did something with the bloody clothing, or is he trying to retrieve it? I mean, what is he doing? It's just really interesting, these moments where he just turns on his cell phone for a little bit and then turns it off. And then it doesn't come back on for another 3 hours. But what was he doing in those 4 minutes? All right, everybody, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Thanks again for watching. As I just said a minute ago, I appreciate you. Hit that like button and share the video. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.